I'm live. Okay. Hello. How are you,
Hi,
Oliver?
hi, Peter. Thank you so much for joining. How are you doing?
It's a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me. It's great to be here.
Yeah, great to have you. Uh, People are already joining the live. Thank you so much, folks. Yeah, with me today is Peter. Peter, you have great publication, great background, and amazing book. So, I won't summarize. I won't tell anything. Please, can you tell us who you are? What's your background is?
Yes, sure. Well, I'm Peter Mukherjee, and my presence on Substack. I have a Substack called A Few Wise Words, which revolves around the book that I've written. But to give you a little bit of background, so we go back to the beginning rather than sort of working backwards. I was born and raised in London, in the UK. My father was Indian, my mother was German. They met over here. I was born in London. I had a bit of a tricky sort of start when it comes to my sort of career because from the age of around, which was one of the drivers for me wanting to do the book, but from around 13, 14, I had a passion for architecture. I was going around doing paper rounds, washing cars, and seeing all these amazing houses. And I've really got a really interested in it, in architecture. I started studying it, and by the time I was 16, I had a real passion for it. But my father, unfortunately, had different ideas. He wanted me to study medicine. And so we had this big dispute over it. And in the end, the sad thing is, and to cut a long story short, I either ended up doing medicine or architecture. So I was kind of in the wilderness, in my wilderness years, as I call it, for quite a few years after that. I started the business studies degree, which I didn't even finish. I dropped, sort of dropped it after the third year. And I thought, well, it was more of a protest thing at that stage. Still, I was young, but I was still not sure what I wanted to do with my life. I gravitated into sales, which I think was a good thing.
Yeah.
So in my sort of 20s, I was involved in selling insurance during a very interesting time in the industry. And after a while, I did very well in that. After a while, I then turned my experience into becoming a sales and marketing consultant. And started doing quite a lot of traveling with that, going to the States and then all around Europe, which is really good. Um, and in the early 90s, I then set up a company called Pentagon, which was a 19-year long story. Sorry, I beg your pardon, a 17-year long story. And it started from building a small business to building a brand to building a franchise network, international franchise network, getting a listing on AIM, buying a company. And then we had all sorts of, without boring you with all the details, we had some issues with legislation and some internal issues as well with the acquisitions we made. And in 2006, again, to cut a long story short, I did a management buyout, not realizing it was just 2 years before the banking crash in 2008. And when that happened, it just made it impossible. And it was just too costly, too difficult. I had a young family at the time as well. And it was just, in the end, I made the painful decision to turn the key on the operation and close it down. So after 17 years of going through a really wonderful time, I ended up having to start again, which was very difficult because I nearly went bankrupt, nearly lost my shirt, but managed to scrape through, reinvented myself as a professional photographer. Because whilst I was doing my business, I was also traveling the world and taking photographs. Had a passion for photography, especially nature photography, to and around the States and China and all sorts of places. And so I turned my passion then into a profession. I started working with the photo libraries like iStock and Getty Images and did very well there. And that thing sort of gravitated into commercial photography. And interestingly, architectural photography taking me back to what I wanted to do right at the beginning. And so today, I'm still an architectural and commercial photographer. Still do a little bit of nature and landscapes and stuff as well. But I'm gradually retiring from that now because I have a new passion or a second passion, which is writing. And around 10 years ago, I had an idea to put together this book, A Few Wise Words. Because of my experience when I was young and not being allowed to follow my passion, but also having a young son, I wanted to make sure that he could do really well, and so that I could be the best that I could be for him. I started thinking a lot about, what a young person needs to do these days in order to find the feet, especially today. It's really difficult, I think, in many ways. And so I had this idea to put together a few wise words, which is basically a compilation of 22 highly successful individuals from all different walks of life, from gold medal winning Olympic athletes to super successful entrepreneurs, billionaires, to A-list performing artists, and so on. And each has an individual chapter within the book where they talk directly to the reader in their own voice. I help them to structure their chapters, and they basically share their wisdom, their advice for young people especially, but also for anyone early on in their careers to be able to excel in life, but looking at things at a very fundamental level. So, my mission was to dig deep into these people's lives, find out what they did, what they believe they did to become successful, and then put this all together in this book, A Few Wise Words, which then became the name of the Substack. And I'm currently working on volume 2 of the book series. And I'm also putting together now a university course as well, which revolves around the book as well, helping young people to develop their soft skills, which I think today is more important than ever before. So that kind of in a nutshell is where I started and where I am today.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks so much for, this great story. First of all, folks, yeah, thank you for joining. I already see some questions. Yeah. This call is absolutely open for questions. Please ask away. We'll, make sure to answer all the questions in the chat. So, Peter. So, sorry for that. So, Peter, I already told you, that you are one of the smartest people I know overall. But one thing that I really, really like in your story is how you were able to adapt, going through all these changes in your life and, you know, overcoming all these challenges. Can you tell us more about, about these things? What does it take to be able to adapt?
Well, it's really funny. Excuse me. Because I seem to be like a modern day careers person, but going back 30 years of doing it then, because when I was younger, everyone kept saying to me, why do you keep changing? What are you doing so many different things? Because in my day, it was quite normal, if you work for a company, to stay there for 30, 40 years and build your pension. And there's a lot of disincentive to go and work somewhere else because it would look like, you were sort of stable. And also, to have your pension so you can retire with a good pension, you normally stick with your employer for a while. And so that was quite the norm at the time. But I changed my career direction quite a few times. Sometimes because I just followed my passion, followed my heart into something, but other times because it was necessary to change, like when I had to close the business down. And I think during those times, I'm just going to say, of course, today it's quite common now to have many different sort of career paths during your overall career sort of journey. But I think for me, the hardest time was when I had to close down the business, and you have to really quickly reinvent yourself because you move from a position where you've been in charge and doing all these great things, wonderful things, and running a business and having employees and clients and everything else, and then just suddenly it stops. Your income stops. The car goes. Everything just is on hold. You have to kind of establish yourself and quickly and do something else. And my wife wasn't particularly keen on me going back into business, so I thought, well, okay, let's then, as I said, reinvent myself as a professional photographer. But then it's hard work. You got to really put your back into it and really work hard to rebuild yourself. But I think the most important thing is you have to have confidence in your own abilities and confidence in the future, because we are all very capable as human beings. We all have talents. We all have abilities, more sometimes than we even give ourselves credit for. And I think one has to just dig deep and find those things when you are in trouble, and really, really work hard at them and pull yourself through. So it's about resilience, really. I think you learn, you gain resilience mostly through experience and failure. And I talk a lot about this. I think that failure is so important. We all fail throughout life, but it's the time when we learn the most is when we fail. and we build our resilience. I think it's during those times that we learn to dig deep and learn to recover ourselves. Because the worst thing that you can do is go to a negative phase and just become, so you go backwards and you start thinking, well, what have I done? And, what's become of me or whatever. That doesn't do you any good at all. You have to find that strength to move forward. And so there've been a few times in my life where I've had difficult periods like that. And you just have to pivot, be prepared to pivot, not listen to all the other voices which will say, why don't you just stick to what you do? But sometimes you have to pivot and make those brave decisions. I think a lot of the times, especially in careers, people take even more of a risk by doing something that they're not happy with. That's difficult than by taking that risk in the first place. You just got to make those decisions and then just go ahead with them.
I love that. That resonated a lot, especially the part with failure. I've read, you've certainly have heard about this. That essentially the saying that people don't regret about things they've done, but the things they haven't done in their lives. So
Yes.
yeah, so uh, that part, I also agree a lot with. I mean, if what if you fail? A lot of times it feels like it would be the end of your life, your career, whatever. But it
Mm.
actually, it all that matters is not that what happens with you, but how you react to all these things, these changes, how you learn and then come back. So I like that a lot.
Absolutely. It's funny because I often say that I think most people never really truly discover what their real talents truly are. I think we tend to go through very narrow channels. We end up picking the first thing that we think we're good at and just go down that route and just develop that. Whereas an analogy I often give is, we all know Usain Bolt, the runner, you know, fastest man in the world, a lovely guy, lots of records and everything else. I often wonder how many Usain Bolts there are in the world, maybe tens of thousands out there, who never have discovered that they can run. They've never explored what their full talent range is. And I think very often we just tend to pick on the first thing that we think we have a talent for and just go with that, rather than really fully exploring what we can do. So I think, yeah, again, when the things go wrong, that's often the times when you think, okay, what else can I do? I have to think now. It tends to work. So
Yeah, I mean, even let's say with photography for you,
mm.
you probably didn't know you'd become a professional photographer, by in your earlier career. So yeah,
Yeah, it's always fun for me. I just enjoy doing it, and then I thought, well, actually, it's a skill that I have acquired through practice.
yeah,
Let's see what I can do to develop it. And in the end, it was relatively straightforward to do because I had this love for architecture. I just started knocking on the doors because I had some sales experience. I wasn't shy of knocking on doors and asking, looking for opportunities. And I started building a portfolio of architects, interior designers, developers, and started doing work for them. And then building that up, and you just go with again, you find your talent and you just go with it.
love it. Uh, okay, so with all these, you know, people you've met, changing jobs, changing, career paths in a sense, I wonder what kind of people you have worked with and uh, who you learned from.
That's a great question because I think one thing which we must do, and I really really believe in this, is to always speculate with and just associate yourself with people who are greater than you, better than you, wiser than you,
Yeah.
often older than you, and just see what you can learn from them. Because the one thing that I have done throughout my life is always single out those people that I felt I could learn from. And interesting to get the book going. I had the idea and was thinking about it for a while. And I then went and had lunch with a good business friend of mine, a very successful businessman. And he just asked me, what else have you thought about doing? What else do you do apart from photography? What else is on your sort of your back shelf that you might one day have a look at? And I mentioned the book. And he said, "You've got to do it." And he then introduced me to somebody who then introduced me to Lord Mervyn Davies, who became my partner on the project. He's helped me to get a lot of the people into the book as well. But he's been like a mentor, a friend, and a mentor to me throughout. And he's an incredibly influential guy. He mentors so many top people around the world, and he's not only a top person, but he does mentor a lot of CEOs and really super successful individuals. And so I've learned a lot from him, for example. So I think it's always good to surround yourself with good people. And I think the smartest leaders of all are people who will surround themselves with people who are better than they are, because they're not afraid that they're going to be shown up, or that they're not going to have the position as being the number one person. They may have that sort of title, but it's the people around them who they can sort of most learn from and most benefit from, especially if they're sort of more capable in many ways than they are. That's an interesting philosophy for leadership, but yeah.
Yeah, I believe I'm not I don't do professional sport or anything like that, but I believe that that's essentially what professional sportsmen do. Essentially you start practicing in your area. When you become the best one, you go to national level, worldwide level, and so on. Because that's the only way to become better. With
Yes,
essentially being challenged by people who are more experienced, better than you, in all sorts of directions.
definitely. I mean, look, nobody can ever succeed in life entirely on their own. You always need help from other people. And then sports is a great example, because every athlete, every sort of footballer, whoever, comes to a moment when they realize, look, I can't progress without help from other people, a good coach, a good manager, and so on. I think it's when we recognize that we need that input, that's when things can really sort of help. And sport is a very good example for that. Yeah.
Oh, great. Uh, well, by the way, folks, again, I know some of you have questions. Please do use the chat. We'll be happy to answer these. Uh, and a quick reminder again, with me is Peter. He's a very experienced person with leadership, and we're talking about all these things about leadership and books and being able to adapt, change, and all this. Uh, Peter. So talking about leadership, what you had your own company. You talked to those people, like very very experienced people. From your point of view, what does good leadership really look like?
I think good leadership, I think we've got to look in two sort of areas. First of all, there's the business leader, say, for example, or an organizational leader, someone at the top, the CEO or whoever. And then there's the team leader within an organization as well. And I think, the things that make a good organizational leader, say a CEO, everything's changed. I mean, the days when, an organization, when recruiting a CEO, is looking for a safe pair of hands who can steady the ship, but make sure that it's growing by 5 to 8% a year, and that we can increase the dividends by a certain amount each year, and just keeping things nice and safe, and making sure that we're around in 10 years' time. That sort of leadership is history, because the world today is changing so fast, is evolving so fast, that anyone who has that sort of mindset as a leader, they're taking the business backwards. They're not even staying still. The business will move backwards, because the only way to lead an organization, not just a business, any organization, is to approach it today with a transformational mindset. Because you can't, the world is changing so fast, you have to keep up with that, or your competitors will, and you just move backwards. So I think a good business leader today has to be a transformational leader. And transformation involves taking risks. So you have to be a big risk taker. And then in order to get your organization aligned with that, you have to then build the right culture within an organization. And if you're encouraging your organization to take risks, it means you have to encourage your people to take risks as well. But in a way that they don't have to fear for their jobs. They don't have to feel that if they make a mistake, they're going to be pilloried for it. Risk taking is a part of a cultural thing within any organization. Is really important, because it's part of how you sort of transform a business anyway. And so I think giving people permission to take those risks is very important. But these days, I think a good leader can no longer be the person locked away in an office sitting in an ivory tower. They've got to be part of the environment. Excuse me. We see a lot of very successful organizations like Apple and so on, Google, who have an open sort of floor plan policy. The managers, the bosses sit amongst their people. Maybe a senior manager might have an office, but it's a glass-sided office, so people can see them and they can see their people. I think being more involved and not so isolated from their people is ultra important. Because any transformational leader these days has to be able to carry their people. You can only really carry them properly if you're involved with them and empathize with them. And then getting to the team leader, I think this is really, really important as well. I think, again, a team leader can no longer be, the things that get in the way of good team leadership are ego and arrogance. And nowadays, these will work against you. I think a good team leader now is someone who understands the need to empathize with their team, to get involved with them, to get to know them, and to, realize that their success is dependent upon helping their teams to become successful. So if a good team leader now is someone who invests their time in making their team successful, because from that their success will become apparent, and I think that's a really important one as well. I think those are kind of the qualities I think which are really important today for leadership. As far as I know, I hear this from all the amazing sort of people in very senior leadership roles that I'm privileged to speak to in what I do.
Yeah. And I actually agree a lot with that. Like completely agree with that. Uh, Building this environment where people can experiment, learn, fail, learn from their mistakes, and improve. That's the only way to foster innovation nowadays, specifically as I said. Uh, that said, I wonder, you say these days, was it was the innovation less important in, let's say, early 2000s?
Was the vision? I think things have really evolved since then. I think COVID in itself has also got a lot of people sort of thinking. And somebody told me, a very senior person, told me the other day that when they were talking about going back into the 90s, this lady was a woman. She's a very successful business leader in America, and she was saying that when she used to talk about empathetic leadership and being vulnerable in front of your people and with your people, everyone would say to her, "Oh, that's because you're a woman." But now, today, she says this, every sort of leadership discussion, every leadership talk you hear, everyone talks now about empathy and about vulnerability. And I think so. Things have changed a lot since the 2000s, and things are going to change even more so over the next 20 years because, again, with the pace of change with technology and AI and everything else, the impact is going to be enormous over the next few years. And I think things will still evolve. And the empathetic, more sort of a sensitive leadership, I think is going to be a quality that's going to be in demand in the future.
Love it. By the way, yeah, we have a comment. I totally agree with that. The comment from John is people often fail from not listening to the experiences and wisdom of other people who have already lived the lessons and experiences. I that
Yeah, that's
completely.
really yeah, yeah, that's true. Very
Yeah.
true.
Uh okay, yeah. Getting back to this thing with leadership, uh what most people get wrong about it.
I think again, I think where a lot of leaders have failed in the past and do fail still is arrogance and ego, as I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
I think these days is very challenging for any organization because going back to what we were saying right at the beginning about careers and changing career paths and everything else, um, you know, these days it is quite normal to have several different careers within your career journey. But one of the biggest challenges for any organization is the amount of money and time they invest in somebody they bring on board, help them to learn their skills, to develop as an individual, and then they lose them to another organization. All that time and investment that's gone into that individual gets lost. They don't really see a return necessarily on that investment because that person then goes. Because there's always going to be someone somewhere who will offer them more money and give them an attractive package that they can be seduced by. But the thing is this, that there's one thing that people will put ahead of moving for the bigger paid deal or bigger package. And that is if they really enjoy where they're working right now and they really enjoy their role, enjoy their work, they're less likely to want to move on. So if you bring on somebody good, and you're in a good organization that nurtures and develops its people and understands the need to keep their people and keep them happy and to provide the right sort of culture and the right environment that's positive and which is enjoyable to work in, they're far more likely to keep their people than if they if they don't do those things, and they can easily lose those people in this sort of time. And so going back to your question, I think where if a manager within a division, say, is arrogant and is more ego-driven, doesn't relate to the people very well, makes the environment not particularly comfortable to work in, they're far more likely to lose those good people elsewhere than if they concentrate on empathetically trying to build the right environment so that the people want to come to work on a Monday morning. So I think where leaders fail often is where, again, this is where I've learned from other people, is where they are, they're not really looking at investing, if you like, in the understanding their people and making that culture correct within their team, within their organization, and making it an enjoyable place to work.
Yeah, I was thinking about that now. So, especially nowadays, with AI, as you mentioned, things change a lot. So everybody's learning. Nobody really knows everything, and you don't have a lot of space to be arrogant.
Yes.
So I was thinking, like, with AI, everybody can do the, so to speak, in my niche, specifically in data, everybody can do the technical side of the job. So being person matters even more than ever before.
Yes, for sure, for sure. And it's really interesting because one of the things that fascinates me about the whole AI revolution is the degree to which people who used to be creative and used to use their brains are now using AI. And what happens? There's a thing called entropy,
Yes.
and things gradually settle back down to a level, and our brains go to sleep. And I think people who write, for example, both on Substack, people who write using AI mostly to create their content, not necessarily on Substack, but elsewhere especially, are gradually going to sleep. And they will eventually, I think, suffer for limiting we need to keep that muscle flexed and working. And I think, so that's an important thing. I think with especially in creativity with, adopting AI, but making sure that you still keep your creative muscle flowing. But I think also, as you say, it's the personality. It's not just AI. I mean, it's the degree to which people now use their phones to communicate. I see a lot of young people now. They prefer to communicate with other young people on WhatsApp and using emojis and so on. Nothing wrong with that, but that becomes the focus, and they move away from being at the phone and speaking to somebody. I think that's quite interesting. And I think, and I was having this conversation with somebody yesterday, interestingly, that older people now, we're used to communicating. We're used to standing up and speaking. We're used to, um, you know, um, selling to somebody and going out and looking for deals and doing different things, and which involves a lot of communicating. The further we move away from that, I think it's not going to be beneficial for anyone in the long term. I think those who keep communication, keep especially soft skills and emotional intelligence at the forefront of what they need to learn. Those are the skills they need to acquire. Are the ones who are going to really, I think, prosper in the future. And I think those who don't, who rely too much on technology, are the ones who are going to probably slip behind.
Yeah. That made me thinking, because I certainly see a lot of this into, for example, my kids, they
Mm.
now struggle communicating with each other and all of this. Because as I said, when you don't use your muscles to learn these skills, to practice these skills, you essentially start losing them. So it is a
Yes.
so speaking about all of these growth and using muscles, I wonder what, from your point of view, from your experience, what separates the leaders who grow from those who plateau?
I think again, it really goes back to everything we were saying. It's those who are forward-looking, who understand that your success in the future within this dynamic world, and it's changing for everybody. Your success will depend on investing your time in helping your team to be successful, to empathize with them, to understand them, and to help them to grow. That's how you will grow. And I think that's the thing that will differentiate, and that does differentiate some great leaders from those who aren't so good. But it's quite interesting because again, talking to a lot of CEOs, a lot of people think that a good CEO, successful CEO, is one who just makes lots and lots of positive decisions to get everything right. Whereas in fact, it's a myth because any CEO is every day having to make decisions, and some they'll get right, and some they'll get wrong. Sometimes they'll get them wrong. And I remember talking to Ursula Burns about this, and she was the famously successful CEO and chair of Xerox.
Yeah.
Started as an intern, grew all the way up to become one of the most successful businesswomen in U.S. corporate history, but also one of the most successful businesswomen in the world. She's very much respected. And I remember her saying that, as a CEO, when it comes to making decisions, out of 100, you've got to make 51 good ones, and you probably do 49 bad ones. That's about the batting average, apparently. But you just got to make sure that the 49 bad ones you make, they're not too bad. You can afford to have a few howlers, really bad ones within those 49, maybe one or two, but you've got to be careful because those are the ones that you can get fired over as well. But the other 51 decisions have got to be really, really good ones, and that's the thing. But to have an immaculate record of getting everything right, if you're taking risks, if you're pushing boundaries, then you will make mistakes. And so I think a good leader is one who understands that, I believe, and it can also then, in a way, sort of develop that as a culture within their organization. Again, as we were saying earlier about encouraging their team, their people to take risks as well.
Yeah. So yeah, I like that again because it's all about making risks. And again, I certainly don't watch baseball. I don't understand the game at all. But I've read something around this where essentially the best batters, I believe, they make like 30 or 40% of their hits are basically mistakes. They don't hit the ball. So
Mm.
a big percentage of their plays are not great, but because the others are great, they're considered to be the best players in the world, and people praise them. So yeah,
Well, it's interesting. Somebody once said to me that the time to really look at a successful CEO and ask questions is when they're successful. Why are they successful? Are
yeah,
they just hitting the wave? Have they just made a few very good decisions that they're sort of riding off the top of? Um, it's not just when somebody makes a bad mistake and then you sort of dissect what they've done wrong. Very often, one needs to look at people who are doing well, often, and critically looking at what they're doing, just in case there's something there in the background that needs to be looked at as well. But that's what as I say, I've been told. But it's an interesting area.
yeah. That reminds me to a conversation I had with somebody, and what they were explaining was you when you make decisions, you need to split them into reversible and irreversible decisions. So bad decisions, you need to make sure, you need to try to make every decision reversible. So even if you make a mistake, that's fine. You can fix it. But if it's good, you just continue. And as you said, you ride the wave.
No, you're absolutely right. In fact, this is all part, I think, of good risk taking because you can't just sort of do it suicidally in a way. You need to, when you're taking a risk, to understand that if things go wrong, you've got to always calculate that things could go wrong. What are your contingencies? What will you do to recover from that? How far can you go beyond. If you go too far, then it may be irrecoverable. You mustn't go that far. Perhaps just going up to those boundaries, defining those boundaries. So risk taking has got to be measured. But it's interesting what you're just saying there. I think it's always thinking in terms of what could go wrong, and kind of building that in as contingencies. Really, yeah.
Great. So my next question is, uh, how do you lead people through uncertainty? Again, with having in mind all of these risks.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, and I mean, it's really, really interesting because I talk to a lot of young people, and I think it's quite clear today that there's a lot of uncertainty about the future. Again, with young people, a lot of them are concerned about their jobs in the future. What is AI how is AI going to impact their future careers and that sort of thing? People within careers already, looking down the road, thinking, "Well, hang on a second, is my job going to be vulnerable because of technology in the future?" So I think there is a lot of uncertainty at the moment, and I think from an individual point of view, the one thing that I mean, for me, I often heard it said, and I often say myself that nobody can become successful in life without being curious. You have to be curious. You have to be wanting to learn all the time. Learning doesn't stop when you finish university. You learn throughout life. You need to want to learn and be curious to learn all the way through. Because curious people are the ones who go on to make something big with their lives. And so I think, you need to invest today with all this uncertainty in emotional skills, emotional intelligence, because those are the skills that will help to define you in the future, help to um, differentiate you from everybody else who doesn't have those skills, because those are the things that will be, I think, the factors that employers will be looking more into in the future. Even now there's talk that degrees don't matter so much. It's the capability of that individual to communicate, to manage people, to be visionary, to be inspirational, and their creativity and ideas. That's what people are looking for now in the future. So, in terms of individuals and uncertainty, the best way to feel less uncertain about things and to deal with uncertainty is invest time in those skills that are going to help you in the future. And those are mostly going to be your soft skills, I believe, largely. And then when it comes to leadership, I think again, um, you need to again invest in the people. And a good business leader, when things go wrong, and in times of uncertainty, has to be a positive face. We know the expression, glass half full from a glass half empty. You definitely have to be a glass half full sort of person. And again, I remember talking to Dame Caroline McCall about this when she famously built up EasyJet to what it is today. Because when the original founder eventually he was replaced by her, the organisation wasn't in the best shape, and she built it up into a customer-facing, very successful business that led the whole sort of airline industry in a particular direction. She's been very successful. And I remember her telling me that when Brexit happened, most of their business was based in around Europe in different sort of locations, and all of a sudden this would have a huge impact, negative impact potentially on the organisation because of regulations and because of different governments. Now suddenly you're not part of the European Union, and they could then start favouring their own airlines or whatever. So the potential impact was huge. But she said she just went around and talked to everyone and just basically delivered the message. Look, this is going to be tough, but we are going to get through this. We're a good company. We've got very, very good credentials. We've got a fantastic sort of set of people working within this organization. If we all pull together and just just put our nose to the grindboard for the next sort of year or so, we will come out of this and come out of this stronger. I think that in terms of uncertainty, you need to have that sort of it's a leadership quality, I think, being really positive and being able to pull and take your people with you, because they're looking to you for the inspiration as the figurehead in times of uncertainty to be able to pull you through that as well.
Yeah, curiosity is something I also talk a lot about, especially again, nowadays with AI and all of these changes in specifically the tech world, you know, understand, you can always have something, the AI do things for you, but being able to learn more, being able to learn what happens behind the scenes, exploring new areas is something that helps you, you know, show yourself as somebody who doesn't just get by, but really, really thrives into this age of change, really.
Yes, yes. I mean, one thing I always argue for, and I've said this before on lives and other discussions with others as well, is that when you look at your career path, I mean, it's so important. We're going to be spending so much of our lives working.
Yes.
You know, the absolute holy grail in terms of what you want to do with your career. The absolute holy grail is to find something that you can really, really love doing. That is so crucial. If you're in a career and you're not quite happy there and what you're doing and it isn't quite rock your boat or whatever it is, the worst thing you can do is just stay put and hope that something will happen. And be fearful of making change, taking the risk of trying something else. You know, the greatest risk for you might be that you may never find success and fulfillment in your life if you stick at doing something that you don't love doing compared to taking a risk and trying something new. You might fail. But again, if you fail at doing something that you love doing, you still have the energy from that. It's still time invested. You can go and try something else. But I think it's so important to find something that you really love doing because when you do, that's when you reveal your passion for something. And that game, the reason I'm mentioning this is kind of links to what you were just saying before. When you reveal your passion for something, all sorts of magical things start to happen. First of all, you have all the energy in the world to work hard, so you can work hard and become more prolific. But you also, your attitude changes, your focus changes, everything improves. You become lighter, you become more charismatic as an individual, you become more positive. And within the workplace, people who love their work, are passionate about what they do, they're the ones who get noticed. They're the ones that people say, "Would you like to come and join our team? Because we'd like your energy. We'd like you, to invest your energy in our team, or they want to come join your team." So I think having that passion, that energy, comes from finding something that you really love doing. So again, with uncertainty and whatever it is, looking at the future, I think always look at every part of your career as a stepping stone until you eventually find that thing that you can love doing. But you must stop moving. You must keep looking and never stop because the worst thing you can do is just stay put if you are.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I completely agree. That resonates a lot. We have a couple of comments. First one is from Pierre. Essentially, they say they need to leave. Pierre, don't worry. We will post a recording later this week. I hope you can watch this and catch up with our conversation. I am really hoping that you like this one. And one from Nadia. Thank you for sharing. It's very inspiring listening to you both. Nadia, thank you. Yeah, again, really, really like that comment. And the last one from John, what they never teach you in Harvard Business School, Street Smart. I think that was around curiosity, maybe. So yeah.
Yes. There's a
Uh
great book, actually. Well, they don't teach you the whole business. I forgot who it's by now. I remember reading it years ago, but yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, it's about emotional skills and emotional intelligence and learning and investing time, being curious and learning those things that can really help you. Yeah.
yeah. Peter, the last story you told us, I really wanna dive a bit deeper. So my question here is about yourself. I probably know the answer, but still, what's the hardest leadership lesson you had to learn from yourself? For yourself.
Okay. I think again, I haven't been sort of leader of a large organization. I had a small business, quite people, but it's still a leadership position in a way. But again, talking to lots of business leaders, that's where I gain a lot of my sort of knowledge today. But my own feeling, talking about my own experience in terms of the hardest things about being a leader, I think the biggest lessons, I think, is humility. I think one of the most difficult things I had to do when I closed down the company, and there were people there who'd been working for 15 years or more with the organisation, and who thought they had a great future, and I had to tell them that they have to go. I'm sorry, but we're having to close the business now. That was very, very tough, because you're really impacting somebody's life in potentially a negative way. And I think one of the big lessons I did learn was to do that with humility, with empathy again, and to really care for that individual because they're going to have to go into to a big change. You're not the only one who's being impacted. Your staff are being impacted too. And I think giving them a sense of hope for the future, talking to them in terms of, look, you've learned a huge amount here that you can carry forward with you now as a set of skills and knowledge and experience that you can then take with you to your next employer. It'll really help you. And talking like that and just being more sympathetic and empathetic, I think that was the biggest lesson for me. Because, you can fire somebody and do it in a very matter-of-fact way because that's what organisations, a cycle that they have to go through from time to time. Sometimes people aren't good enough and you have to fire them. But I think to do those things in a way that is sensitive to that individual, that cares for that individual, I think is really, really important. So that's a big lesson for me.
Wow. Okay. uh, so yeah, I was, that thing really hit hard about firing people and still being empathetic. I've had a couple of cases like that in my life, and in fact, yeah, what I learned is that even if you do that, people are actually fine with it, fine with the decision, and they still keep in touch sometimes, and
Mm.
they don't hold hard feelings for
Yes.
that. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm still in touch with a few of the people that I had to let go, which is nice. And they send Christmas cards and things. So I think, yes.
yeah. Uh, okay, so what does it take to actually lead a team? People that love working with you.
So you can say that again, Jordan. The line just went quiet.
Oh yeah. So what does it take to lead people who love working with you, being part of your team?
Yes, I think again, creating the right sort of environment, the right sort of culture within your team is really, really important. Where everyone feels included, where everyone feels valued, where you concentrate on helping them to enjoy being part of that team. Again, going back to the investment in somebody, the amount of money and time you spend developing somebody within an organization, you want to lose them before you have a chance to actually see a return on that investment. So, keeping people happy, involved, recognized, valued is really important. Again, I know we've used the word empathy a lot, but it's, empathetic sort of management and leadership of those people, understanding them, being involved with them, being part of the team rather than just the leader of the team, I think is really important as a leader. So I think that's really crucial. Something which I think is very good, and a lot of businesses do this, and I think I've seen it work very, very well, is where you do actually provide some form of financial incentive that's built into the team. Whereas a team, there's a bonus that you can sort of participate in at the end of the year or every 6 months or whatever it is. And it depends on the team performance that, how well they do. That's, it gets divided up perhaps in proportion to how much they earn individually, so it's fair. But I think, and where I've seen it most successful is not where the team leader then says, okay, top three people get something. It's where the actual team decide who they think are the best amongst them to who most should be rewarded. So you get a prize for being number one, two, three best employee within the team, for example, but where everyone else then shares in some form of reward there. It doesn't have to be necessarily just a financial reward. It can be a fantastic day out somewhere or going to a big dinner or something like that, but just something that recognizes the team and the efforts they're putting in. Share options as well.
I actually, I actually like this part about incentivizing them to work as a team, because you can always have this somehow somewhat a competition with individuals, but incentivizing them to work together is a great idea. I have never seen this one before. I like that one. I'll certainly steal it.
I've seen it work well, and I think it's. But to go back to your question, I think it's entirely down to making sure that people really enjoy it and have a chance to love what they're doing. Yeah, that's really important.
Oh yeah, certainly, yeah. Let's switch gears a bit. Tell us a bit your book, A Few Wise Words. Read it, massive fan. I love it. So,
Great.
but yeah, let's talk. Let's tell the audience what it is about.
Well, it's a compilation of 22 chapters, each representing an individual. As I mentioned earlier, that includes gold medal winning Olympic athletes, so billionaire entrepreneurs and intellectual leaders and A-list performing artists. So it's quite a broad range of people, all sharing their stories of success, their wisdom, and their most valuable advice with people who want to also excel in their careers and in their lives. But as I said earlier, it's very much at a fundamental level. I want to explore deeply, but not clever little tricks, but fundamentally, what are the important things that people need to learn and to acquire, which again is all revolves around emotional intelligence today. And so the book is just really packed with that sort of wisdom and knowledge. And we've got a very diverse range. It's 22 contributors, half are men, half are women. Business is represented, sports represented, and the arts and intellectual leadership, as I mentioned as well. And so, yeah, it's quite an interesting mixture of people. And what is interesting is that sometimes the views might be quite polar because everyone's on an individual journey. We all have a different story, a different path, a different journey. And there's not one single road to Rome. So very often when you read a biography from somebody, it's very much their particular view on doing things or an autobiography. Whereas in fact, there may be lots of different ways of doing the same thing. And so within the book, you'll hear someone talking about setting goals and how important it is to have your blue sky goal and your medium goals, and you break those down into your smaller goals and benchmarks and everything else, especially in sports. Whereas typically in the arts, there are people who say, "Oh, I don't believe in goals at all. The only goal I'll have is to do the best that I'm doing in front of me today to the best of my ability. Whatever I'm doing to the best of my ability is their goal, and or to seek fulfillment in life, happiness in life as a goal." And so you get this kind of polar kind of views, so that the reader can actually take what they feel aligns with their own journey. So yeah, the book is just, and I'm working on volume 2 at the moment, which we're about halfway through. And which is involving a lot of travels and lots of meeting lots of very, very interesting people, and spending time with them. All the people who go into the book are met in person. There's no remote sort of, you can't really empathize and get into somebody properly unless you're actually spending time with them and helping them to develop their chapter and so on. So it's very much a personal thing, but yeah, that's kind of the book.
Yeah, I was actually very surprised when I saw some of the interviews like that. All of them are in person. I didn't expect that the first time because those are lots of great people, and I was very surprised when we met the first time. It was like probably more than a year ago in this community, writing community. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So yeah, my question then was like, how he did get access to all of these people? So, yeah, actually,
Yeah.
yeah. Tell us a bit about that.
Well, it's networking basically. I've got a reasonably good network, and so I know quite a lot of good people who get me into other people and so on as well. But as I mentioned earlier, a very good business friend of mine introduced me to someone who then introduced me to Mervyn Davies, Lord Mervyn Davies, and so more than half of the people in the book are people that he knows, and he's introduced me to. And then some of the individuals who've gone into the book have then introduced me on to other people. Sir Keith Mills, for example, who was the guy who invented Air Miles and Nectar Card. He also helped to bring the 2012 Olympics to London at that time. Very, very successful, very interesting business guy. He introduced me to Sir Ben Ainslie, who's the Olympic yachtsman, because he invested in his team and everything else as well. So that, and then through other contacts, I met other people. It's just networking. But also, I think when you go in with the right sort of proposition and you're targeting the right sort of people, it's not that hard to get the right people to get involved. because all the people who've gone into the book are good people who fundamentally are known to give back, who care about making an impact and so on and so forth. We were always approaching people who were of that sort of ilk, if you like, and so it becomes relatively straightforward to get them to agree to go into the book as well.
Yeah, that's hard. I think for most people, networking takes a lot of effort, overcoming some fears, if you wish. Like, hey, you know what? I personally know a lot of people like that. Maybe it's to a certain extent myself. Like, who am I? Why would these people agree to talk to me? So I really admire this part.
Networking is such an important activity for anyone to do because it's one of the ways in which you build your confidence, and which is a hugely important emotional intelligence skill. And I think one thing I encourage everyone is to just get out there and network because it doesn't matter. You're just talking to people, but the more you talk to people, the more you engage with them, the more you learn, the more you become confident, but also the more doors and opportunities you're opening to yourself as well. Because a lot of people in the book have become very, very successful because they happen to meet an individual that has opened the door for them, that led them on to great things. So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Let me ask you this, because you mentioned there's nothing common in their stories, in a sense. All these people, like, they have very different mindsets, processes, and all this. So, still, is there something that kept coming regardless of who you were talking to?
Well, there are two things that really kind of I found fascinating. One which I didn't expect. The other one which was was interesting to have reinforced in a way. The first is that how every single one of the people who went into the book, every single person I met who's ultra successful, they've always talked about how lucky they believe they have been in their lives to have got to where they are today. And in fact, a lot of them will talk about very, very specific lucky breaks in their lives that led them on to the levels of success that they've managed to achieve in their lives. So luck is really, really important. But of course, the key is what can we do as individuals to make our own luck in the first place? And that's a whole area in itself. I was talking to one of the guys who's going into the next book. He's a multi-billionaire businessman, and he was talking about a single phone call that he had many years ago with an individual who could make a decision that would allow him to continue on to become a mega successful entrepreneur or not. He was a successful entrepreneur. That one phone call with that one individual could have gone either way. He had to have the skills to persuade that person to go in this particular direction. But the guy said yes, and it enabled him then to see his vision through to become an extraordinarily successful industrialist. And so luck is really, really important. And it can often be those pivotal moments where luck can really sort of have its a big role to play to delivering those opportunities to you. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that everyone I talk to talks about their passion for what they do. Passion is so important. It's something that, again, it goes back to finding something that you can really love doing, because that's where you reveal your passion for something. So it's got to be the goal for everyone. Finding your passion. It's a difficult thing because sometimes people say, "Yeah, you've got to follow your passion." Well, if you don't have a passion for something yet, what are you following? So there's a lot of exploration. You've got to keep looking and keep digging until you find that thing that you can love doing, from which you can reveal your passion. But everyone in the book talks about their passion for what they do. So there's a correlation directly between success in life and finding your passion.
Yeah. I can also say two things that I noticed. For me, one is regarding the thing what you said with luck, it's a lot of risk taking. All of these people are risk takers, because even luck is one thing, but you need to also take the chance when you have it. That's something I noticed. To me,
Yeah.
everybody was like, I certainly see some of those stories. Like, I was like, hey, you know what? I wouldn't take that chance. I wouldn't take that risk. That's too risky for me. But those people are not like that. So that's what made them very, very successful.
it's very interesting because Sir Clive Woodward, who's the England coach, who took England to rugby World Cup success, and they did. He said to me something which I thought was very interesting. He said the worst thing that can happen in life is to you get older and you look back and think, I really wish I'd taken a chance on that.
Yes.
I could have done.
Yeah.
And looking back with regret to what you didn't do, the decision you didn't make that could have led you on to something great that you had a vision for. I think that's so key. You've got to take those chances when you get them. Sometimes you may fail, but it doesn't matter really. You pick yourself up again, you try again. But it's if you fail at doing something that you love doing, it's not really failing in some ways. It is, but it's something that it's worth doing that rather than not doing it and then just having an ordinary life, if you like.
Yeah, exactly. That's certainly one thing that resonated with me a lot. I'm one of these people, if you wish, like that, like following a plan. You make changes and whatnot, but certainly more of a framework guy, if you wish, somebody who follows the steps. Whereas from your book, I really, you know, that opened my eyes, if you wish. Like, just take the risk, and what happens happens. Worst case scenario is you get and that's it. So that was a big thing for me.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's absolutely right. Absolutely right.
The other thing was, you already mentioned it, but nobody succeeded by themselves, like alone. You need a lot of people to help you, to take small steps here and there. You need this support network, if you wish. That was a big thing as well.
Yes, indeed. It's all about building the team around you. And I think one thing's very, very interesting at the moment, Jordan, is when looking ahead. I've seen this, talked about about a lot, and that is we've got to kind of change our perception of our role within our work because we're no longer programming manager, we're no longer um, uh, administration manager. We've got to look at ourselves almost like our own unique individual business within that organization.
Yeah.
We've got to promote ourselves. We've got to acquire the skills. We've got to develop ourselves like a business within the organization that you're working within. And think of yourself as an entity, almost like a self-employed, a solopreneur within your career, within your organization. And what are the things that you need to do to build that? Rather than thinking, well, I'm an administration manager, and that's what I do. Because it's how you project yourself in the future, how you describe yourself. If you say to somebody, well, I'm an admin manager, I've been doing this for the last 7 years. What does that really say? But if you say, well, I have, in the last 7 years, I've organized this and I've done that. These are the successes we've had. This is what I'm particularly good at doing. And these are my strengths. This is where I think I can add value to your organization. These are the things that I think that I've learned that I can also carry forward into helping your organisation to do better this time. That's the sort of way in which you need to communicate, like a business almost within that organisation, to be able to convey what your skills and your aptitudes really are. You've got to think in that sort of way. So, yeah.
Yeah. One of my very first articles that I wrote on Substack was about that, when essentially I described the career, people's career, not as a ladder, as you could see the most times. It's more like a climbing wall where you're the one who decides your own path. So, you know,
Yes.
sometimes you
Exactly.
take a step aside, sometimes you take a step back even, but that's reality.
You're right. And I say this to young people all the time. I describe life as being a little bit like a game of snakes and ladders. You roll the dice, you move forward. If luck is in your favor, you climb a ladder. You might be unlucky. You might fail spectacularly and slide down the snake. And life is like that. But we don't have to think that our futures are dependent on the roll of a dice, because there are so many things we can do as individuals that can load the dice in our favor. It's learning how you actually make your own luck in the first place. Going back to network, I'll just give another one quick example. If you're somebody who goes out and does one networking event a year, and you might speak to 3 people at that networking event, people probably quite well. Okay, that's fine. that might open some doors for you. But instead of going to one networking event a year, you go to, say, 5. And instead of talking to 3 people, you talk to 10 new people. All of a sudden, you're going from 3 conversations with people you're familiar with to 50 conversations with people you're not familiar with. You never know. One of those people can open a fantastic door for you for the future. That is how you make your own luck. So many people's success in life as you can go back to a particular time where they've met an individual, perhaps by chance, perhaps by just going to that event, perhaps by just standing up and talking about something, getting your attention for something. And you've connected with an individual who's then opened an incredible door for you that has led you on to some fantastic things. And I think that's life is like that. It's a journey. You come to a crossroads, you turn left, right, you go straight on. You've got to make a decision. And each one of those journeys can take you to a completely different life altogether. And you've got to open as many doors as you can and have a peek through and see what opportunities there are.
I love that. Making your own luck, designing your own path. That's a big thing. Big thing. Love it.
We're all so much more in control of our own destiny than we actually think we are. But it's down to us as individuals to take that control and do something with it.
Yeah, because there are so many people, right? Including people who I worked with or I've worked with. They essentially expect somebody else to design, let's say, their career or what they need to do instead of you go out, meet with people, decide your own projects or your own career really. So that's big. That's massive.
Mm.
Okay. What about Substack? What you're putting in your publication?
Well, Substack has been a bit of an experiment for me, to be honest. I wanted to have another face there, in addition to the website we have for the book and so on. But also because I love writing, and it was an opportunity for me to express myself. I hadn't been as active on it as I'd like to be. I do, participate in other people's notes, and I do notes regularly myself and so on. I had just been really, really busy with a lot of things recently. But my intention now with Substack is all nicely, I think, established now, is over the next few months to start really ramping up the articles I'll be doing and the regular newsletters as well. Again, it's all about sharing the knowledge and the wisdom that I'm gaining from all these amazing people that I'm meeting on the Few Wise Words journey. Because I'm meeting fascinating people all the time. And I just want to share all of that with my subscribers and followers and so on. So that's kind of the purpose of my Substack. But I also love the community. I'm in here as much for that as anything else. I've talked to people like you, Jordan. I think you've got a fantastic Substack, by the way. I think you're doing so well. It was really lovely to see. And you are an inspiration to me as to what I could do with my Substack as well. And that's true. And so I think that's great. And I think, just speaking to people within the Substack community is great. Getting to know some lovely people. I've made some nice, lovely friends there. But yeah, I'm intending to use my Substack over the next few years to kind of share more from a few wise words, so that other people can benefit from all those things that I'm covering in the books as well.
Yeah, I actually, I it's the same with me. I passionately read your articles, watch your lives, and I already told you, but I already have a few things that I'll certainly steal from your Substack. You know about this. Uh, Still, who is your publication about? Who is it for actually? And why do you? That's a good question. Why do you write?
Yeah, I think again it is a good question because I've been trying to work that out myself. I mean, for me, my Substack now is about again sharing what I'm learning from all these amazing people that I'm meeting, because these are all people that are 1,000 times more successful than I am, who've gone out and become mega stars in their own way in the world, make huge impact, and to get in front of these people and talk to them and learn from them what they have done, what they believe they've done at a fundamental level, being able to share that's what my Substack is all about. So when I write an article about passion, or about hard work or whatever it is. Yes, there's a degree to which I have obviously learned from my own experiences in life, but a lot of it, most of it, comes from what I've learned from people who have really done incredibly well with their lives, and I think they have a lot to share. And I just feel like I'm a bit of a conduit to enable them to be able to share that knowledge and wisdom. My Substack, I want that to be a portal for where people can actually learn some great things from these amazing people as well. So yeah, that's what it's about.
And that's amazing because there are not many publications. At least I don't know other publications that do that, especially so well as yours.
Thank
Uh
you.
okay, is there anything I should have asked but didn't?
I think we've covered quite a lot today, haven't we? It's been really, really good discussion. I really enjoy this. And, thank you for some great questions. I was going to ask you some questions too, but you kept them firing. I think it's all great, and I think that's it's been a fabulous opportunity. So yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, of course. No, thank you for accepting, to join this call. Uh okay, the last thing is where can people find you online in that case?
Well, again, on my Substack, if you go to the homepage, I'm going to put it at the top. I haven't yet, but at the bottom you see a link there to A Few Wise Words, and that'll take you to the landing page, which will then take you off into different directions. I mean, the book is available as a hardback, and that's here, of course. So, oops, there it is. A Few Wise Words. And it's also available in paperback and on Kindle as well. And we just recently created an Audible version.
Wonderful.
Again, on my Substack, you'll see a little link there where you can actually play a couple of minutes of the introduction, which has all the different voices. We've got about uh, 12, I think, different voices doing the individuals as well. So so that's all there on my Substack. A few wise words.com is the website, but probably best to look at the landing page, which is on the Substack. But it's also a few wise words.com/landing hyphen page. Will get you to there, and from that, that'll lead you to the different areas where you can find me.
Yeah, I also post links in the article when I publish the recording. But again, strongly recommend both the books and Peter's Substack. Both are great, really, really good.
Thank you very much. Brilliant. And I'd also, once again, really commend your Substack. I think it's a model for a brilliant Substack as well. So
Oh, thanks so much.
thank you
Thanks
for your
a
inspiration.
No, I appreciate it. Okay, Peter. Yeah. Again, thank you for joining this. Thank you everybody for listening to us, watching our chat, and see you next time.
Thank you too. Thanks for everyone who's participated too. It's been really great. Thank you very much for me. That's lovely.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you. Cheers. Bye now. Bye bye.